Enemy aliens in World War I, especially Germans, had many freedoms and luxuries which enemy aliens in World War II did not. There were very little complaints from German internees regarding quality of life in internment camps. Life was good and not too unbearable, as Dubotsky's photographs uncovered. There were theaters in most camps, where fellow internees put on performances for the other internees. It created an interesting ecosystem, one where, despite all the worries of the war from the outside world, these interns could live in isolation and with relative comfort given what was going on in Europe at the time. This comfort was unexpected by many, given that all people of fighting age were to be interned during World War I if they were of German or Austrian descent. These photographs have been taken at Trial Bay, an internment camp on the eastern coast near Sydney. In World War II, despite internment being a last resort option for many aliens found in Australia in contrast to World War I's compulsory internment, there were just as many internees as there were in World War I, over 12,000 at its peak. Camp quality varied as well. Due to more ethnic groups to divide, more people to divide, and greater fear of naval invasion from the Japanese, camps along the bay were removed and barbed wire fences were placed around existing inland camps to section off ethnic minorities from one another. This restriction of freedom of movement added to considerably worse shelter conditions. Many interns only had tin roofs for shelter in 40-degree highs and below 0-degree lows, and in some cases even forced labor caused World War II's camp's quality of life to be substantially below World War I's quality of life, camp-wise. In both world wars, the government actively encouraged discrimination against enemy aliens. It worked. In both World War I and II, the Australian-German population were targets of significant racist abuse. In World War I, their loyalty to Australia was questioned en masse, to the point where all people of Germanic descent were interned, by law. In World War II, all Germans were stereotyped as Nazis, and the public was so vigorous in detaining them that a German was almost guaranteed to be interned, just like in World War I, where it was enforced by law. The government raised this public support through propaganda in both World War I and II. Pictures like these were advertised in national newspapers. Sir Gerhard Fischer put it best when he said, "The Australian government sought to destroy the German community as an autonomous entity within Australian society through many different avenues. These avenues included propaganda. In the beginning of World War II, the Australian government enacted the National Security Act of 1939, which allowed the Australian government to intern enemy aliens for no reason at all, citing, quote, national defense, unquote, as the cause." Conclusion: Australian attitude and treatment towards enemy aliens in general stayed generally the same throughout both world wars. By virtue of having more ethnic minorities, to not wanting to place internment camps on the coast due to strategic vulnerability, the quality of life for interns in World War II was substantially worse. Beyond that, the government maintained a consistent level of discrimination and indirectly sponsored lynching of the enemy ethnic minorities in Australia through their use of propaganda and discriminatory legislative practices, such as the National Security Act of 1939.